Story 1. IIT for asking my sister not to have a baby? I apologize if this is long and rambling. I just got off the phone and my nerves are shot. I, 38F, called my sister, 41F, and asked her to please reconsider TTC. She has been trying for almost 3 years, is on welfare/social aid, and permanently disabled. She cannot afford a child, and is always running GoFundMe campaigns on Facebook. I just found out my older brother was funding her for years before he cut her off. She's not married or partnered, she owns a unsuccessful online business, and just keeps soliciting sperm donations from random men online. We have always had open finances with each other since we were homeless together in our 20s. It was okay to borrow cash here or there. There was no expectations to pay it back. Just be willing to do the same if the other asked in the future. I ended up marrying someone, 37, significantly wealthier, with a upper middle class family. I went from being on social aid myself to being able to live comfortably and stop working to pursue a college degree. I only have a high school diploma, while my partner has a couple masters. Everyone in their family has multiple masters or PhDs and high-paying careers. It went from an exchange of small amounts in times of need between siblings, as we were both relatively on the same socioeconomic level, to the point where she was constantly texting or calling for funds. She even directly called or texted my partner sometimes. I was so used to giving and asking for money from her in the past that it didn't register that it had become one-sided, and she was asking for larger amounts until my partner came back from talking to their financial advisor, sat me down, and showed me I'd been sending my sister hundreds of dollars a month, thousands just in 2024. My partner and I agreed to only giving her $50 a month. She always asks for more. It's always an emergency. I can't seem to say no because I've been there. I know the struggle. My partner and I just started TTC, and it made us sit and discuss my sister. If she's constantly calling now, it's going to be worse/more pressure if she has a baby. My partner's exact words to me were, "I didn't agree to finance your sister or her future children when I married you." I agree. I called her just now and asked her to please stop, or at least reconsider TTC. I laid out how much she had asked for in the past 3 to 4 years since I got with my partner, and if that was how much she asked for now, what was going to happen when she purposely became a single mother? She was gauging to call me, and I'd feel obligated to help, and that wasn't fair to me, my partner, or the baby. She got really angry with me and said she would use WIC and social aid. I told her that we both knew that didn't cover enough since we both were raised that way. She said I was looking down on her since I married up, and that just because she was poor doesn't mean she shouldn't have children. She hung up the phone on me. Does this make me an asshole? Story 2. AITA for only getting a college graduation gift for my 28M son and not my DIL 28F? So I'm a 55F, and my son, who I raised as a single mother, recently graduated from grad school. His wife, my DIL, also graduated at the same time, and I gave a special gift of a bit of cash just to my son, because I'm proud of him as his mother, and I feel a sense of pride since I raised him as a single mom. I figured my DIL had her own parents to gift to her. Well, my DL texted me saying she was very hurt that I only acknowledged my son, her husband's grad, and not hers, as she thought she was a part of the family as my DIL, and they've been together for a while. She said she didn't expect the same amount of money, of course, but just a card or something. She said she felt like I overlooked all her hard work and only saw my son's. However, I don't feel like I need to apologize or justify my choice in wanting to reward my son individually. I could be the AH for overlooking my DIL's accomplishment and only acknowledging my son's. Story 3. AITA for asking my parents for my money back. I've always dreamed of moving out from my family home because of all the drama I faced growing up with them. I moved out around 2022, but somehow my parents convinced me that paying rent somewhere else doesn't make sense when I could just live at home for free. As someone who wants to buy their own place one day, this made sense. However, ever since moving back, I've been asked to pay for things that I've been promised would be paid back for. It started off with just some random $200 here and there, but then it jumped to $1,000 and eventually even $10,000. Now, mind you, my parents and I live in a very well-off neighborhood, in a house that has 7 bedrooms with marble floors, so from the outside, it looks like we're very well off. But my mom has explained to me a few times that they're struggling to pay off the mortgage on this house and our previous house. I obviously thought about, or why don't you just sell our old house? But it is our childhood home, and you would be ashamed to get rid of that asset. I've asked politely about when I could be expecting my money back, but I would usually be responded with, "I can't talk about that right now," or "It's coming, just be patient." That was a year ago. It's hard to be talking about this subject with them without them losing their temper. To me, it just seems like they're ignoring the fact that they have to pay me back and that hopefully I'll forget. I'm a student right now and pay for my tuition myself, and I work part-time. And I know I'm living in their house rent-free, but at this point, I'd rather just move out again than have these inconsistent promises and guilt tripping. So far, I am probably owed $25,000. AITA for pushing them to pay me back. 4. AITA for not telling my husband I'm going to bedroom to cry. Me, F32, and my husband, M31, were driving home from our friend's place. I still had to take the dogs out for a walk, and it was past midnight. We both were tired. On the way, we talked about something that was painful for me, and I started to cry. We arrived home, and my husband asked a more detailed question about my feelings, which I answered. After a short moment of silence, I got out of the car, went inside, and took the dogs out. When I came back in, my husband was doing his evening routine, cooking, and started watching Netflix while eating. I brushed my teeth, fed the animals, and still crying went straight to the bedroom, in a sad mood. I got under the covers to cry. I didn't want to disturb my husband's routines because I knew he would come next to me after completing them. When he came, I was still awake and feeling miserable. He put earplugs in and said to me, "Good fucking night." I was shocked and asked why he talks to me that way. He replied, "Think about it till morning." When I demanded to know what I did wrong, he told me that I had first offended him by getting out of the car in the middle of a conversation, which he would have accepted. But when I didn't inform that I was going to the bedroom after brushing my teeth, I offended him and did not follow good manners. I agree. We have a habit of telling each other when we are going to sleep, but this time I was emotional and just wanted to cry my feelings out. He eventually apologized for what he said, but I'm still really sad. Story 5. AITA for not going with my boyfriend to his friend's wedding. My 33F, boyfriend's 34M, friend is getting married in a few months and we are invited. His death. The groom is a childhood friend of my boyfriend that a few years ago moved to another town, which is where the wedding is going to be. Same country but far enough that we need to fly there. Stay. In the same day, I also need to attend a conference in my field of work that is going to be held in yet another city, significantly far from the wedding location. The conference is a pretty big event, and I'm going to make a presentation of my team's work. Unfortunately, the last day of the conference is also the day of the wedding. When I told my boyfriend I couldn't attend the wedding because of it, he got upset and asked me if I could skip it or leave a day early. I told him I cannot skip it since it's an important event for me and my team, and I can't leave early because I need to be present for the entire duration to get my attendance certificate, which I need for my CV and other work-related stuff. Also, I don't even know which day my presentation is going to be yet, hence I cannot decide anything beforehand. I tried to come up with other solutions, like taking a train right after the conference is over, since the wedding is late in the afternoon, but I found it would take over 8 hours, and I wouldn't make it. Also, by plane it would take too long because the airport is few towns over. My boyfriend got mad at me for this. He didn't explicitly say it, but we had this conversation on the way to meet some friends, and he barely spoke to me the entire night. I get that he's not happy about it, but I don't get why he's mad at me. To me personally, it would be different if it was a family member's wedding, whether mine or his, or a close friend's to us both, in which case I would choose to skip part of the conference and arrange someone else to do the presentation. However, I think it's different since I don't even know the bride and groom. I've briefly met the groom twice and never met the bride, which means they're not going to be upset. I'm not there, only my BF is. Jared. I don't think it's wrong to choose what to sacrifice depending on the people you are sacrificing it for. In other occasions, my BF has skipped events in my family for things I considered good reasons, such as work or things he has scheduled with his friends prior to the family invite. Also, I want to mention that we would be going to the wedding with other people from my BF's friend group, so he would not go alone anyway. So please tell me, am I the asshole for thinking there's not nothing wrong with my BF attending his friend's wedding without me, given the situation? Story 6. AITA for asking for a break from my annoying sister-in-law. Myself, 33F, and my BF David, 35M, are invited to a destination wedding. In him. The wedding is a 3-day event. Also invited is my BF's parents, his brother Peter, 41M, and Peter's GF Jane, 42F, and we are all sharing a villa. To save on costs, my BF suggested we fly with Peter and Jane and hire a car together for the 4 hours round trip to the venue. The plan is to fly evening before and stay at a nearby city, then drive to the wedding the next day. For context, I've never gelled with Jane. She is, in a word, Exhausting. Stay. She usually talks nonstop about herself, and in the past I have tried interjecting with questions, etc., to try and break up the monologue, but she interrupts mid-sentence and always brings the conversation back to herself. I have been on holiday before with my B's family, and others also noted how exhausting she was. And there were several times where her and Peter had public arguments and drama. She just isn't someone I'd freely choose to spend time with, and the idea of spending more time with her than necessary fills me with dread. At the weekend, my BF and I got into an argument after I said it would be nice for him and I to do a few hours sightseeing alone in the city before getting in the car with Peter and Jane to the wedding. David loves doing things in groups, and while I'm also really social, I do find that my social battery depletes a lot quicker, and I enjoy having some time to myself to recharge. It also depletes a lot quicker around Jane. I thought it would be good for my sanity to have a few hours away from Jane before the wedding weekend to recharge so I can fully enjoy and be social during the 3-day event. However, my BF thought I was being selfish and unreasonable and said that he didn't want this to affect him spending time with his brother, and how the whole point of the weekend is to do things as a group and go with the flow, and he didn't want to have to invent a BS reason to Peter as to why we wanted to go off and do our own thing for a few hours. He also said our other friends may even join us in the city, so there's a chance we'd be there with others, not just them. I get that he doesn't want this to come between him and Peter, but on other occasions, such as family events, going out for dinner with his Peter and Jane, etc., I always say yes, in spite of fact I don't enjoy her company. He agreed that while he also found Jane annoying, he didn't want that to affect his relationship with his brother, and felt like I was asking him to choose, and worries this will be an issue for us in the future, as there have been other times where he's wanted to invite other people to our plans. My BF suggested a compromise, that we can get up early and do some sightseeing by ourselves before meeting up with Peter and Jane, but I suspect that this is purely for him to avoid feeling awkward, having to tell Peter we're doing our own thing for a few hours, as my boyfriend tends to people please. AITA for asking for a few hours away from her to protect my own sanity. Story 7. AITAH for basically telling hubby he's fat. Last night, I suggested to my husband that we finish off the leftovers in the fridge since we had plenty of food that needed to be eaten. Instead of agreeing, he immediately countered with, "Wouldn't you rather go get nachos?" I shook my head and firmly said no. Death him. He then sighed dramatically, as if I'd crushed his dreams, and declared, "You don't feed me." Without skipping a beat, I replied, "You wouldn't be overweight if I didn't feed you." That's when the tone of the conversation shifted. He immediately told me I was being mean, and that my comment was uncalled for. I stood my ground and explained that I only said it because I felt insulted by his original remark. To add some context, this isn't the first time I've felt unappreciated. During the holidays, my days were consumed with taking him out to eat, or cooking meals for him, ensuring he had food he enjoyed. It feels exhausting to put in so much effort, only to be told, I'm not doing enough. I'm wondering now, did I take things too far with my response, or was I justified given the circumstances? AITAH. Story 8. AITA for going to get a drink and a snack after work. Context. I, 28F, sometimes like to go get a drink after work, always on days my boyfriend of almost 2 years, 24M, works until 10 p.m. Now, tonight after work I wanted to grab a drink like I sometimes do. My BF was scheduled in a position that is on until 10, and I only work until 8, so I figured I'd go grab a drink at the bar of a local restaurant I like, then go home and cook dinner. Around 8:30 I arrived and got a cocktail and an appetizer. And to clarify, I was there alone, just scrolling through social media and eating my appetizer. And the place was nearly empty. Around 9:10 he texted me asking where I was. I told him I was at that restaurant. We'd been there together before, having some chips and tartare, and I was about to go home. He then proceeded to tell me he had been home for an hour because he was able to get out early, and then asking why I didn't tell him I was going out, or why I didn't go right home after work. I am pretty sure his intention was to surprise me by being home early. I told him that I was sorry I didn't tell him, but I had expected him to not be home until about 10:30, so I planned on going home after, around 9:20, and cooking dinner for both of us. He is upset. I didn't tell him what I was doing, to which I replied that he didn't tell me he had gotten off work early either. So how was I supposed to know? He answered that by asking who went home after work, me or him. I really value my independence, and alone time is important to me. So yes, sometimes when I know my boyfriend is working late, I'll go and have a drink by myself before he gets home, or do something solo on a day off and not tell him I'm not with anyone else, and nothing I do is particularly destructive. I just like to enjoy my alone time doing things I like to do. I told him this when we first started dating, and he told me he would never control me or tell me what to do. But this seems like a line crossed. Am I the asshole for not telling him what I was doing? Story 9. AITA for refusing to make plans for one weekend a month? My girlfriend and I have decided to try to be more active this year and go for more walks and hikes in nearby areas. We'd prefer this to the gyms. It allows us to go to nearby towns we wouldn't have otherwise visited. My girlfriend is slightly overweight, whereas I'm a healthy weight. We were talking about how often we were going to go, and my girlfriend said at least one fairly long walk per month, with it going to at least 2 when the weather is better, as we'd only be able to go on weekends. I was fine with that, and told my girlfriend I'd like at least one weekend where I do nothing and just stay at home relaxing, watching Netflix, reading Zem, playing video games, etc. She said she thought we were going to be more active, and I pointed out with our plan we will be, but that doesn't mean I don't need downtime. I said having time to do nothing is healthy and needed to not burn out. She said it would be a waste of a weekend, but I just told her it wouldn't be wasted for me, and if she doesn't want to, then she's still free to make her own plans. She just said it looks like I'm already looking at not sticking to our plan, but I just told her being more active doesn't mean spending every free day being active. I said it's not healthy to not have a few days off. She just said I shouldn't need a weekend to relax and that it's too much, but I disagreed. She said I should be open to make plans, but I again told her I would be making plans for the majority of the weekends and I'll be taking one for myself. AITA for not making plans for one weekend a month? Story 10. AITAH for refusing to continue providing free childcare for my stepdaughter? I did a work program with the local clerk of court's office when I was in high school. They hired me when I graduated, and I had my 30 service years before I turned 50. With 30 service years, you can get your full pension at any age. I worked until my first grandchild was born. Then I retired to be grandma daycare. I have 5 grands, 8 male from my stepson, 7 male from my son, 5 female, and 18-month male from my daughter. I babysat all of them with no issues or complaints. I still keep the 18-month-old Monday to Friday, and the older ones, summer and school holidays. My stepdaughter and her boyfriend has been non-stop drama since before the baby was born. When she was 10 weeks pregnant, they presented a 3-page list of rules for when I was babysitting. They said if I didn't sign it, they wouldn't allow me to babysit. I said that I understood their need to do what was best for their baby, and I assured them that there would be no hurt feelings on my end when they made other childcare arrangements. Some of the rules were almost understandable, but most were downright ridiculous, and none of it was going to work for me. I don't remember them all, but some examples are: I can't take the baby anywhere without their permission. I can't watch more than one additional child while babysitting. I can't cook. I had to provide the full name, job, and address of any potential visitors ahead of time for their approval of the person being around their child. They have to know anytime I have a guest over and know who it is and how long they stay. My 9-year-old cat would have to be kept out of rooms where the baby would be, even when the baby wasn't there. I couldn't get another pet without their agreement. She was 7 months along. They came back with revised rules in an attempt to compromise. I again let them know that their expectations were not going to fit with my life, and they should just find other childcare. 2 days after my stepdaughter went back to work, she called and asked if I could keep Cullen the next day. I agreed, but made it clear that I was going to provide safe, appropriate care, according to my judgment, and I wasn't going to deal with complaints or whatever that I was violating their rules, because I wanted it very clear that I was not agreeing to any of that. My stepdaughter was okay on the days she picked Cullen up and dropped him off. I felt like she was interrogating me every time she picked him up, but it was tolerable. But her boyfriend was downright rude. I got to the point where I actually spent Sunday dreading the start of the week because of dealing with both of them, but especially his behavior. At minimum, he'd pick up Cullen, make a big deal of partially undress him, make at least one snide comment about my cat or if I had any grandchild over besides the 18-month-old or if I had cooked or whatever. Then he'd say, "I guess we don't have any choice but to put up with this for now." Or, "I guess you are happy that you won." This went on for 4 months. I spoke to my stepdaughter several times about it and told her that obviously they are very unhappy with how I cared for Cullen and that they should really work on finding something else, and that in the meantime he needed to be less vocal about it. It would get better for a day or two and then he'd start again. It all came to a head as Thanksgiving was approaching. He was very verbal about the fact that he didn't want me to keep all my grandchildren over the break. I made it very clear that there would be a couple of days that I had all of them, and that they needed to make other arrangements if they had a problem. Didn't make other arrangements, and when he picked Cullen up on the first day that I had all my grands, he was very rude, and although nothing happened, everyone was happy, clean, fed, had a great day. He said, to Cullen, that he was sorry that they had no choice except to leave him in an unsafe situation to be neglected. I called my stepdaughter that night, relayed to her what was said, and told her that she had 2 weeks to make other arrangements, and that she needed to drop off and pick up Cullen during those 2 weeks, and if her boyfriend came to drop him off, I would refuse to keep him, and if he picked him up, I would not keep him again. So things were better only dealing with her. At some point, she asked me if I would keep him until January because they found someone, but he couldn't start until then. I agreed. She picked Cullen up and dropped him off. Everything was fine. New Year's Day. Several people sent me a screenshot of a post her boyfriend made on social media about how thankful he was that they were finally able to leave Cullen without worrying about his safety or him being neglected. He didn't outright name me or accuse me of anything specific, but anyone who knows us knows I was keeping him, and the post implied plenty. I was just happy that it was over. Friday, she called me and said that their new childcare provider had told her that Cullen wasn't a good fit and that she couldn't bring him back Monday. She asked if I would start keeping him again. I told her that I was sorry for their situation, but I really don't feel comfortable keeping him. My husband and stepson both think I should watch Cullen, under the agreement that Amanda drop him off and pick him up because they think her boyfriend is the big problem and that I should just do it for Cullen's sake. My stepson also commented that I'd probably be more willing to let it go if it had been a conflict with my daughter's husband. My pension is about $4,000 per month, plus continuation of my health insurance. That's about 40% of our take-home income, if that matters. AITA for refusing to start watching Cullen again? Story 11. Am I the asshole for cutting off my family, parents for leaving on a trip when I was being induced to deliver my stillborn son? I was 28 weeks pregnant with my second child, my son, when he passed and I had to schedule an induction. My parents were to leave on a trip/cruise the day before. This trip was booked before I even became pregnant. They told me they couldn't cancel because they booked this trip with a group of relatives and were worried that these relatives would get lost without them. I acknowledged that I never spoke up to ask them to stay. I didn't want to beg anyone to be there for me. My parents were supposed to watch our daughter, 7, when it was time for the birth. Since this was sudden, and with my parents leaving, we were scrambling to arrange care. I was in the hospital for 3 days. My cousins came to visit, and my parents called, thanked them for being there for me, explaining that they couldn't cancel their trip. It felt wrong that my parents were thanking other people for being there for me during the most traumatic time of my life. Nothing could ever make me get on a flight and leave my daughter if she was going through this. My parents were also posting pictures and videos on social media the entire length of their trip, knowing what I was going through back home. My parents came home from their trip a week before the funeral. I didn't talk to them at all. I answered one of my mom's calls and said I'd consider forgiving them if they both apologize. She said sorry, and that her trip was terrible because she lost her luggage, that if she could do it over again, she wouldn't go because of her lost luggage. I told her they're bad parents, and I haven't picked up another one of her calls since. My dad hasn't tried to reach out. Some context. My parents also weren't here when my daughter was born. They went on a trip which they booked after I was pregnant and left 2 days before my due date. I had an emergency C-section and complications with that delivery. I'm the eldest of 3, and my parents have always treated me differently, worse. My sister is the golden child. This is not to diminish the childhood trauma my siblings experienced on their own. My sister and her fiancé think I'm being harsh/AH. They think this one thing doesn't make them bad parents. My sister's fiancé says he wouldn't have canceled a trip. They don't think my parents being there for me would have made a difference. When I said this is the worst thing my parents have done to me, they disagreed. I felt invalidated by them, so I cut them off. They can't understand why I've cut them off and say they were questioning me to understand my feelings and trying to help me get over it by sharing their perspectives. My sister said she likes hearing others' perspectives and opinions, so I guess I should too? They don't get how my anger towards my parents is part of my grief. So AITA for being mad at my parents for not canceling their trip that was booked well before I was pregnant? AITA for cutting off my sister and her fiancé for voicing their opinions? Story 12. AITA for telling my deadbeat father's wife and daughter to leave me the fuck alone? My dad walked out on me and my mom when I, 19M, was a baby. He didn't pay child support, didn't ever see me, didn't show up at court at any point, and he never reached out to me. I always had questions about him, but my mom was always way too nice about it until I turned 18 and she laid it all out for me. She even showed me the file she had for court that showed all the times he didn't show, how much money he owed, the fact she chased after child support for years, but he always found a way to avoid paying. For 6 years, she tried to chase him through court until she gave up the fight and let the debt compile because it was costing her money and was taking from her ability to support us. He was the truest definition of a deadbeat, and I have nothing good to say and no interest in establishing a relationship of any kind. In September, I got a friend request from this woman on Facebook. We had no friends in common, so I ignored it. Then I rejected it. She sent it again, and so I accepted because I found it weird. A day later, a request came from a girl, and I rejected that, but just like the other account, she sent it again. I saw they were friends, so I left it ignored. Then a DM came from the account I had accepted the request from. Turns out this was my deadbeat father's wife and oldest daughter. They wanted to find me because they felt I should know my family and how I was now old enough to decide for myself. I told them I wasn't interested and to please leave me alone. I unfriended the wife and blocked both accounts and went private. But my Facebook is linked to my Instagram, and the daughter tried to reach me there. She said I didn't know the truth and deserved it, and how she and her siblings always wanted to know their older brother, and how her whole family were hoping we could all come together as a family. I blocked her there and ignored it. The daughter found another account of mine on another platform and has pestered me there ever since. It's constant new accounts, and I have reported some. I tried replying once more, saying, I'm sorry she got her hopes up, but I'm not interested. The next day I had messages from both mother and daughter saying my mom was the reason I didn't know my deadbeat father, and how she was abusive and awful, and he had to leave, and he hated walking away, but she was dangerous and awful to be around, and I deserved to know the kind of thing I was raised by, and yeah, his daughter called my mom a thing. I responded that they were making a lot of accusations and defending him so much, but he left me with a supposedly abusive mother and made no attempt to save me from it in 19 years, and that it tells me all I need to know about that man. I said once again they needed to leave me alone, and I wasn't going to have a relationship with any of them. I thought they were finally going to leave me alone, but then before Christmas, I got a long message from the two of them that basically gave me this sob story of a man who loved me but feared my life would be worse if he stayed, and I'd be abused worse, and how he hoped my mom would abuse me less if he wasn't around. I didn't even address the rest. I told them to leave me the fuck alone before I go to the police for harassment, and I told them I would if they pushed it. The wife flipped out on me and said how dare I speak to them in such an abusive way, and clearly I'm my mother's son. She told me I should be ashamed speaking to a teenager that way who did nothing but try to love me. She is so pissed that I had to turn my phone off because I kept getting notified of all these messages, and I tried to stop them contacting me there, but the feature to stop them seems to be wonky on my account. I did go to the police, but I need to keep all of them going forward to make a case for anything. What I had wasn't enough. So yeah. Am I the asshole? Story 13. Am I the asshole for wanting to leave my 32F husband, 38M, because I can't deal with the weaponized incompetence anymore? This is one example from today. He has done things much worse than this and does them regularly. I feel like I have a third son, not a partner anymore. I had my son, 2M, booked for an audiology appointment this morning at 8 a.m. I was rostered to work, so told my husband he had to take him to the APPT and then drop both our boys at daycare. Not hard. He works away in the mines, so I do things like that all the time, as I'm sure you all do too. I woke up at 6 a.m. for work today, go in and wake him up so he's running on time, and get hit with, OMG, I'm so sick, I'm sweating, I've got a sore ear, I've been up every hour. So I say, oh, that's no good. Well, once the kids are at daycare by 9 a.m., you can come back to bed all day. To be met with, no, absolutely not, I'm too sick, you have to take the kids to daycare. He hadn't taken any Panadol, ibuprofen, anything. Just flat out refused. So he not only makes our boy miss an important APPT, but then also makes me late for work, because I normally wake up at 5 a.m. to get the kids, and I ready and fed when I do daycare drop-off before work when he's not here. I text him saying if I get home and he's not dying in bed, he'll wish he was dead. He texts back saying, I'm so sorry, I hate letting you down, I'm seriously unwell. I ignore him for the rest of the day. Get home from work. He's not here! I ring him. He's at shops buying groceries because we have no food. He's also cleaned the house spotless out of guilt. Well, darn, that must be one of the quickest recoveries ever made. I just can't deal with the weaponized incompetence anymore. Smiling face with tear. He thinks I'm being harsh and unfair. I think he's taking the actual piss and honestly have thought of pulling the pin. What's your thoughts? Am I just being a nag? Story 14. Am I the asshole for telling my best friend the truth about why I skipped their wedding? So here's the deal. My best friend, 30F, let's call her Anna, recently got married. We've been super close since college, and I, 31F, was thrilled when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I helped her plan the wedding, threw her a bachelorette party, and even handled some last-minute vendor drama. Then came the dress fitting. The bridesmaid dresses Anna picked were not great for my body type. I'm plus size. But I didn't say anything because it was her day. However, during the fitting, Anna made a comment like, "Well, at least you're in the back for most of the photos." Everyone laughed, but I felt humiliated. Later, I told her privately that her comment hurt my feelings. Instead of apologizing, she said, "I didn't mean it like that, but you know the dress wasn't made for curvier girls. I figured you'd get that." I didn't push it, but I started to feel weird about the whole wedding. Over the next few weeks, she made other small digs about my appearance, like joking about me needing extra fabric for alterations. I decided to step back emotionally, but I didn't want to ruin her day, so I planned to suck it up. The night before the wedding, Anna called and asked if I could step aside during the bouquet toss because she wanted all eyes on the bridesmaids, implying I would stand out in a bad way. That was the final straw for me. I told her I wasn't feeling well and didn't attend the wedding. When Anna texted afterward asking why I really missed the wedding, I told her the truth. Her comments made me feel like she didn't value me as a friend, and I couldn't face being there. She blew up, saying I ruined her day, made it all about me, and embarrassed her in front of everyone by ghosting her wedding. Our mutual friends are split. Some think I should have just gone and dealt with it for one day, while others think Anna crossed a line. So, am I the asshole for skipping my best friend's wedding and telling her the real reason why? Story 15. Am I the asshole for telling my ex's sterile affair partner to have her own daughter if she wants to share cheerleading with one? My ex, 44M, cheated on me, 40F, and ended our marriage so he could be with his affair partner/wife Jen, 42F. This happened several years ago when our kids were very young. My ex gets our kids 6 days a month. He works out of state frequently, so this was the most consistent schedule where our kids would be with a parent, me or ex, instead of being left with a babysitter or his wife. According to my ex and Jen, she is sterile and can never have kids. I never asked, but they offered this up in hopes I would share the kids with her more and encourage them to embrace Jen as their second mom. I have not done this, and I have told them we are not friends and they are not to expect favors from me after going behind my back and doing what they did. Jen was someone I knew before learning the truth. She was dating someone in my ex's friend circle and made a point to get to know me. I found out why after. She was expecting us being friends would help me not to hate her afterward. I bring all this up because of what's currently going on. Jen was a big cheerleader in her youth and volunteers with local cheer groups. She wants my daughter, 10, to get involved in cheer. My daughter told me about it the other week because Jen was trying to make her go, and my ex was backing Jen on it. She told me she didn't want to, and she needed my help. All the kids are aware of the fact stuff like that has to be agreed on by both me and their dad. I reached out and told my ex our daughter will not be put into cheer against her will and that he needs to stop pressuring her to join. He didn't respond back the way he's supposed to, through app. So I noted his reply on the app and got a lot of cussing back. Jen tried to call me, but I didn't answer. She approached me a few days later while we were in the same store, and she told me I can't keep punishing her by depriving her of my children. She said she's been in their lives since they were little, and she has every right to bond with them and share stuff with them like that. I told her she does not get to force my kids into stuff like that against their will. I walked away, and she followed me around for a bit and told me how it was her dream to share cheer with a daughter and all the crap that I don't care about. I told her she should have a daughter of her own if she wants to share it and leave mine alone. She stopped following me after that, and I heard from X a few times after saying I was cruel to say that to her when I know she can't have children. Am I the asshole? Story 16. Am I the asshole if I refuse to pay my nail tech's $65 cancellation fee? So long story short, I've been going to my nail tech for over 5 years, if really. We've become really good friends and have even hung out outside of work. I've consistently been her client through 2 studio changes. During the pandemic when she worked from home, and again this past year when she decided not to have a studio anymore. Despite the friendship, I've always respected her business. I tip every time and treat it like any other nail salon. In over 5 years, I've probably had to reschedule a total of 5 or 6 times, only half of those within a day or two of the appointment, but always with more than 24 hours notice. At my last appointment, she mentioned she had booked my recurring slot for December 24th, Christmas Eve, at 6:30 p.m. My recurring appointments are usually at 6:30 p.m. after work. I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised because I assumed appointments would be pushed back to after the holiday. She told me she didn't have plans for Christmas Eve, so she was still working. I expressed some concern about being able to make it, since there was talk of a family Christmas Eve dinner. which I let her know. We talked about moving the appointment to 5 p.m., but she couldn't. It ended with me saying I think I can make it. Flash forward to December 23rd. I get confirmation the dinner is happening. At 2:30 p.m., I texted her saying, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to make it. I asked her if she could please move the appointment to after Christmas, giving more than 24 hours notice. She responded, offering a 12:15 p.m. slot that day, but I let her know I couldn't take it because I was working. After that, just radio silence for 2 weeks. I followed up again and still got no response. Then finally today, she sends this message. OMG, so sorry, I told you I'm terrible about checking my texts. You have to DM for me to see it. What do you mean double move? And, so awkward part. Remember when we confirmed you're recurring? I did inform everyone these appointments would be on Christmas Eve, so I had to be really strict with my cancellation policy. So your last appointment missed was on Christmas Eve. I do need to ask for that $65 fee whenever you're ready. Sorry, I hate this part of my job, especially when it comes to friends. A few things about this don't make sense. I told her I might not be able to make it. I'll own that I said, I think I can, but it wasn't certain. Texting has always been our primary communication. I've never once sent her a DM in the 5 years I've known her. She didn't mention any policy when I asked to reschedule. She's never told me about this policy, and it's not posted anywhere. I still don't even know what it is. My understanding is that 24-hour notice is standard in the beauty industry and doesn't incur fees, let alone the full appointment cost. There have been other times where I felt taken advantage of because of our friendship. Appointments starting late, sometimes over 40 minutes, and questionable safety practices since she moved her studio back to her mom's house, like reusing drill bits, unsterilized tools, and old nail files. I've been a loyal client for over 5 years and have always supported her business. But I feel like this has gone too far. Am I the asshole if I refuse to pay the $65 cancellation fee? Story 17. Am I the asshole for not forgiving someone who never apologized? I, 19F, had a close friend, Lily, 19F, who I considered a sister. We were inseparable until she did something that really hurt me. She spread a rumor about me that wasn't true. It wasn't just a small mistake. It really affected my relationships with others. I confronted her, but she didn't apologize. She just blamed me for overreacting and said I shouldn't care about what people think. I've tried to move on, but every time I see her, it's hard to forget what she did without any acknowledgement or apology. I told her I couldn't forgive her unless she took responsibility for her actions, but now she's telling mutual friends that I'm holding a grudge and being childish. AITA for not forgiving someone who never took accountability for what they did? Story 18. Am I the asshole for dismissing my IL's attempts to convince me to follow their family baby naming traditions? My husband and I, both 20s, are expecting our first child, and we have decided not to do what his family typically does by using family first names and middle names as our baby names. We both have our reasons. I don't have a family. I was a foster kid. My birth family is shit. I never found a forever family in the system. My husband said it would feel weird to pick from just his side, especially when we already have his last name. He doesn't want it to seem like I'm unimportant, and I appreciate it, because it does make me emotional when I think about having to say, we named our kids after family, but it's only his side. Just adding some salt to the wound of being unwanted as a kid. My husband's reason is he would be under a tremendous amount of pressure to choose to use names from his mom and stepfather's sides of the family, and not from his late dad's side, while he would prefer to use names from just his parents' sides. It would be a big deal though, most importantly because there was already some drama over our last name. His name was changed when his mom remarried to his stepfather's, and he changed it back as an adult. That was a very sensitive and sore point for them, and he doesn't want to juggle their feelings when we're meant to be the parents and naming the children as a couple and not with his family. Got around because a relative had wanted to use the name of a recently deceased relative for their unborn child. Our baby is due first, and the relative wanted to check if we were using it. My husband said it was fine, but the relative was like, you sure? Could you change your mind? Etc. My husband said, we weren't using a family name at all. This was kept quiet for several weeks, and then the relative blurted it out during an extended family dinner, and my husband's family were acting like the world was ending. I know my ILs feel strongly about this, but it was an overreaction, I thought. They tried to change our minds, and my husband's mom and stepfather were very outspoken about how much it meant to them, and how they felt my husband should follow it for the kids. He said we were the parents and we didn't want to, but that wasn't good enough, according to them. Over the holidays, they kept trying to approach me about it, and I said I was only talking names with my husband. They didn't give up, and tried to convince me that it would be good for the baby, and how I should want to use family names. I told them to give up because I wasn't listening and wasn't going to listen. They told me it was so rude to dismiss them like that when they're only trying to be caring grandparents. They told me I should be grateful they want us to keep the tradition. My husband told them to leave me alone, and we needed some space if they're going to be like this. Am I the asshole? 19. Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend, 22M, that his opinion doesn't decide whether I get a breast reduction? I, 21F, have been seriously considering a breast reduction for a while now. I have larger breasts, and they cause me constant back pain, discomfort, and make it difficult to find clothes that fit properly. I've done my research and have already had consultations with a couple of doctors to see what my options are. When I brought this up to my boyfriend, 22M, he immediately got upset. He told me he doesn't want me to go through with it because he loves my body the way it is, and he feels like I'd be changing a part of myself unnecessarily. I tried explaining that this is about my comfort and health, not about how I look or how he feels about my body. Then he said something along the lines of, "Well, I'd hope you'd at least get my input before making a decision like this." I told him that while I value his opinion, ultimately it's my body and my choice, and I don't need his approval to go through with a surgery that's for my well-being. He hasn't been outright hostile, but he's been cold and distant ever since. He says he feels like I'm dismissing his feelings. I don't think I've done anything wrong, but now I'm starting to question if I was too blunt in my response. Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for not telling my siblings BF about our pedo brother? You'll need some background story, so I'll try to make it short. Keep in mind that I've told my sibling everything about the situation, so they know. I cut contact with my sibling because they refused to cut contact with our pedo brother. They kept posting pictures with him, smiling and stuff on social media. How do I know my brother's a pedo? Because he raped me 3 years in total. Not every day, but many times. I was between the ages 10 to 13. Obviously, it was very traumatic, and the sibling knows I've tried to kill myself specifically because of our brother. So this hurts my heart, because I've done so much for my sibling. I've been there for them their whole life. Our pedo brother has done nothing more than traumatize me. He's not even that of a nice person. Now to the question. Should I tell the sibling's boyfriend about why I cut contact? He wrote to me in early 2024 telling me that my sibling cries and talks about me a lot, and he wishes that we could put our differences aside and start talk to each other again. Note that I've never, prior to this, spoke or ever seen their partner. I wrote back telling him that this is a complex situation and that the sibling knows what to do in order for me to forgive them. I'm starting to feel bad. The boyfriend has 3 kids, and because my sibling has normalized contact with my pedo brother, I feel bad for not warning the partner. The sibling will 100% meet our pedo brother with their partner and kids. I wouldn't be happy if I found out my partner brought me to pedophile. If I tell their partner, my family will cut contact with me. Not my mom, though. They will hate me for ruining my other sibling's life if the boyfriend decides to break up with them. So I literally don't know what to do. This situation makes me so stressed, and it doesn't feel like real life. Am I the asshole for not telling him? Eat it. Thank you all for reading and commenting. I'm sad that this has to be a situation. My siblings should obviously have cut contact with that disgusting pedo the second I told them. This shouldn't be a situation. I've tried telling the police about my pedo brother. There's no proof more than verbal proof, and me having to go to therapy because of this. And of course he won't go and turn himself in because he's an ugly, stupid, coward, and disgusting human being. Edit 2. I'm currently writing with my mom, and we're trying to make a plan writing to him, or my mom will talk to him. We don't want to write to him when he's with my sibling because they can manipulate or gaslight him into thinking I'm the bad guy. There's a bigger chance that he will believe me if he gets the chance to think and process without my sibling being in the background saying, "No, don't believe him!" and so on. Fuck. This situation is extremely draining, and it genuinely makes me hate my life, and it makes me feel like this life is fucking useless. I shouldn't be in this fucked up situation. My sibling should have cut my pedo brother off the second I told them about the rape, period. My mom is and has been very stupid, like literally. She has an intellectual disability, and she doesn't completely understand some situations and how serious they can be. But my sibling does. They have no disability, indicating that they have a hard time understanding situations like these. My mom freaking cut contact with our pedo brother, but not them? Huh? I'm so happy my mom is trying to help me gather more information, and she's going to help me tell/write to him. My sibling has, fortunately, not met the kids yet. My mom told me that yesterday. So the chance of them going to meet our pedo brother is small, but there's still a chance. It's not worth the risk. I'm gonna have to take some mental break days. I'm genuinely so fucking exhausted mentally and emotionally. I'm going to update when I feel ready, but know that I am going to do something. Thank you. Story 21. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my single mom girlfriend because of the way she spoils her kids and because she acted clingy? I, M41, dated Sarah, F41, for 9 months until the end of 2024. She's a single mom, and I understood that I needed to accommodate her kids, F16, M15, M5, M8. I'm a dad myself, so I fully understand the importance of finding not just a GF, but a potential stepmother, and being a potential stepfather. She has a job, and I have a good job, and I'm generally financially stable. I'm mentioning this to establish that she's not starving or anything. We went on dates and occasionally brought her kids along. I don't know if this is a defense mechanism, but I noticed that she interrupts a lot if she disagrees with the conversation, and I had to ask her to stop raising her voice at me. I have 3 kids, F6, M12, F13. I have an excellent relationship with my ex-wife and her husband. My kids have been taught to be discreet and not to demand stuff when we go out, especially if someone else is paying. There's no nice way to say this, but her children are gluttons. I treated everyone at the movies, and her children just kept adding stuff. It didn't bother me at first, because the movies are the one place where I allow my kids to eat whatever they want, and always made sure they are warm enough. She never offered to pay for part of it, nor did she ask her kids to stop asking for stuff. She insisted on wearing a sleeveless dress and left her jacket in her car, despite my warnings about the theater being a bit chilly. I had to give her my jacket because she immediately asked for it when we sat down, and her children were cold and uncomfortable the whole movie. After the 3rd or 4th incident, I refused to hand her my jacket but did bring some of my kids' own hoodies for her kids to wear, 2 of which she didn't return, and her older kids started wearing like they owned it until I had to ask for it back. She got mad at me for not letting her have my jacket. She said a real gentleman would. Because going out with the whole family was both a logistics challenge and a bit expensive, I suggested we had dates at home, the children would be included, and we would all be comfortable. She agreed, so I cooked/baked and everyone seemed happy. Fast forward and she started bringing her kids along without a warning. This forced a change of plans. She does have a trusted babysitter, but she insisted that we needed to make memories. I started getting pissed because she didn't show the same interest in my children, and I brought it up. Last November, I got out of my car to use her bathroom, and when I walked back, 2 of her kids were already sitting inside. It's not the kids' fault or that I didn't want to be around them, but our dates became uncomfortably unpredictable because she would say something and do another. I would leave my house under the assumption of a quiet date, and she would make the decision to include her kids on her own. Last Xmas, I organized gift openings for everyone. Her daughter kept digging in the gift bag and made a comment that I didn't appreciate once she realized there was nothing else for her. She obviously expected/used to getting more gifts, but that right there helped me make the decision that we are not right for each other. I talked to Sarah about it, but she said kids are being kids. Again, I brought up that her changing of plans at the very last minute stressed me out, and that I would be okay just hanging out at home. She seems to understand, and we moved on. We went out for tacos at her insistence. Everything was great, until I noticed that her kids were ordering the expensive stuff. I immediately asked for a single combination dish for each, since single dish steaks and ribs are huge where we went. Sarah said I was being controlling, and told the waitress to get each kid what they wanted. Well, her kids didn't even get through half their plates after she lectured me and said she doesn't mess with her kids' food, nor allows anyone to do it. I resented that since I was paying, and she made it sound like I was trying to starve them. We didn't spend NYE together because I had plans with my kids. She got mad at me, but I really wanted to be with my kids and to hold our tradition of having our own little party with balloons and non-explosive stuff like confetti poppers. First, she called at around 10 p.m. We talked and I went back to my kids. Then she called again, trying to self-invite. I explained, by the millionth time, that this is my special tradition with my kids. She texted that she was taking her kids to the town square and called almost immediately, which stressed me out because I live about 6 minutes away. She said her kids were bored, but I took away the opportunity of having a great family night. I avoided further conversation because I knew it would end in an argument if I brought up boundaries. We talked at midnight and saw each other the next day. I don't know if she has a different concept of relationships or if she's naturally clingy, but she started objecting/criticizing me for having time alone. It's not like I didn't make an effort to spend time together, but I have a very demanding job, and I occasionally appreciate moments of solitude to recharge. A few days ago, I let her know that I was going to sleep early and that I wanted to spend the day doing nothing. She still showed up unannounced, and I didn't allow her past my doorway. I know it was rude. First, she playfully accused me of having someone at my place. Then she also, playfully, tried to get past me. I had to ask her to leave, and then she got very serious and said she demanded full transparency or we were done. She went from playful to a bit angry. Then she started getting emotional. I promised I was alone, but if I let her in, I would end things because she didn't respect my boundaries. She came in, found nothing, and then tried to get affectionate. I said we were done. She cried and I felt a bit of pain because I still have feelings for her, but I can't keep acting like everything is okay. I feel guilty knowing that she thinks I'm doing it because she's a single mom. We have exchanged some messages, but I blocked her because she wants me to take all the blame. Maybe I should have been more patient, but her parenting and attachment style did affect our relationship. Am I the asshole? Edit. Sorry if this is too long, I'm just trying to let it out. Story 22. Am I the asshole for not forcing my daughter to visit her dying grandmother? This happened a year ago. 9. I, 33F, have a daughter, 13F, who told my niece, 16F, that her male cousins, 17M and 21M, on her father's side of the family, tried to inappropriately touch her. She said it happened when she was around 7 years old. I'm not going to get into all the details, but my niece informed me of the situation and I lost it. I called her father and tried to discuss it with him and his brother, and they called my daughter a liar and hung up on me. So I contacted a lawyer who is also a family friend, and they gave me legal advice. So, since then, she has had no contact with that side of the family except for her grandmother. She's been in and out of the hospital and nursing facilities, and I've made sure my daughter was able to keep a good relationship with her because she's sick and not doing well, and I wanted her to spend as much time as possible with her. A few days ago, she sent me a text asking, "Can we put this all behind us because she's dying? She wants her family to get along before she goes." I was open to a discussion until she sent another text stating that she was 100% sure her grandsons were telling the truth and 100% sure that my daughter was lying and didn't realize the consequences of her actions. Then tried to tell me I need to bring my daughter to the house to see her, the house that both boys stay at as well. She also stated that if I keep my daughter away from her funeral, that my daughter will hate me in the long run. I ignored most of the messages until I had time to calm down, because I know I would have said some hurtful thing. I am very protective when it comes to my daughter, so I sat down with my daughter and discussed everything with her, and asked how she wanted to move forward. She said she wants nothing to do with them, and asked if I could call her therapist because she was having an anxiety attack. I informed her grandmother that she would not be seeing her, and to never contact me or my daughter again. I sent her father all of the messages, and he still isn't saying anything. My daughter stated that she doesn't think she'll go to the funeral when her grandmother passes. Am I the asshole for not trying to convince her? Story 23. Am I the asshole for watching porn? I've been with my girlfriend for around 3 years. For a while now, our sex life has been suffering due to my GF having depression and being in antidepressants that also lower her sex drive. She's expressed wanting to have sex more, but whenever I try to initiate, she turns me down. Due to this, it's been quite a few months since we last had sex. I've been patient and understanding with her and have made sure not to pressure her for sex. Whenever I'm in the mood, if I've been turned down, I'll watch porn and masturbate when my girlfriend isn't there. My girlfriend caught me watching porn and got angry. She said I shouldn't be watching it and that it makes her feel shit that I'm watching porn instead of being with her. I asked what she wanted me to do when she repeatedly turns me down whenever I try to initiate sex. I pointed out she has to understand I'm going to get horny, and what exactly would she expect me to do in that situation? She said I was using her depression as an excuse, but I just reiterated that I've tried initiating sex with her and I'm being patient while she deals with depression, but she can't expect me to just be fine with having no sex and no masturbating, etc. She just said I was out of order for blaming her illness, which I said again I wasn't doing. Am I the asshole for watching porn? Story 24. Am I the asshole for not giving my sister my wedding dress? So, I, 31F, got married a few years ago and have this wedding dress that I absolutely love. It's nothing crazy expensive or designer, but I saved up for it, and it's really sentimental to me. My sister, 28F, is getting married next year, and she's on a tight budget because her fiancé lost his job. She asked if she could borrow my dress, and I was fine with that at first. But then she said she actually wanted me to give it to her so she could tailor it and basically make it hers. I said no. It's my wedding dress, and it means a lot to me. I offered to help her find an affordable dress or even pitch in to help her buy one, but she got really upset and said I was being selfish for letting it just sit there. Now my mom is backing her up, saying I should give her the dress because family is more important than a piece of clothing. I'm feeling really conflicted. I don't want to ruin her wedding, but I also feel like this is a big ask. Am I really the asterisk times sense hole for wanting to keep something that's so meaningful to me? Story 25. Am I the asshole for still being upset that my father purposefully missed my high school graduation last year? I'm 19. I graduated high school at the top of my class. I then moved away for university. Takes 20 hours now by plane to see my dad. Anyways, I digress. My dad missed my high school graduation because he wanted to visit his family who live in another country. He goes every year. Sure, he has limited holiday dates, but he could have arranged to come to my graduation. Now I'm back home for the holidays, which mind you took forever to come back to. And I'm still angry at him. Mind you, he never apologized. In fact, I'm angry at my whole family because when I bring it up to my mom or sister, they just say, "What do you want me to do about it?" And to get over it. Because apparently, high school graduation is not a big deal. I am miserable at home because I still think they are shit parents. And the fact that they can see me cry and still blame me upsets me further. He bought me a necklace as a sorry gift, I guess, and they do take me around to do stuff time to time, but I think purposefully missing a graduation is unforgivable. I admit that my bad mood is ruining the whole family visiting, and my dad told me to cherish the time we have together because I probably won't be back soon, but I just can't forgive them, especially when there aren't any apologies. Edit. Since some are asking, he missed most of my birthdays, didn't get gifts for them, and we didn't speak for about a year during HS. He used to have extreme angry outbursts and threatens me. After my HS graduation with some distance, his behavior improved. Story 26. Am I the asshole for outing my best friend's fake pregnancy? I, 20F, woke up to a message today in my friend group's group chat from one of my friends, 21F, let's call her Sarah, announcing she was pregnant. I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, and told her to stop kidding around or I was going to whoop her. Sarah then replied with a picture of 3 pregnancy tests that all said pregnant, and the other members of our friend group started congratulating her. I immediately apologized, congratulated her, and even started reciting Tekino for her. I took a screenshot of our message sequence, which went like this. Sarah, I'm having the first group chat baby me. Stop playing before I whoop you. You are not pregnant. Sarah, image of 3 positive pregnancy tests. It's well known in our group that I'm a funny and unserious person, so naturally, since everyone knows I'm a lesbian, I made a joke captioning the messages with, "Always knew the strap game was fire." The joke was obviously about how it would be impossible for me and Sarah to have a baby together. When Sarah's boyfriend saw my story, he DM'd me angrily, asking why Sarah had told me she was pregnant and not him. This was about an hour after I posted it. Not long after, Sarah called me furious, asking why I would post the photo without her permission. I didn't see the big deal since I've posted our messages before, and I posted hours after she had announced it to the group. That's when she told me she was not really pregnant, and that she and her boyfriend had been on a break for 2 weeks. Apparently, they were close to rekindling their relationship, but now that he thinks she's pregnant with someone else's child, he's blocked her on everything. I argued that it was disgusting for her to announce to me and our friends that she was pregnant, when she wasn't. Even if it was a prank, she should have told me while I was reciting Tekino for her and her fake baby. It felt extremely weird. Her defense was that she wasn't lying, but manifesting, for when she and her boyfriend got back together. I feel really uncomfortable with this whole situation, especially because lying about a pregnancy is serious. We've been best friends since 1st grade, and she knows I have a toddler born from essay, so it's especially weird for her to lie to me about something like this. Now, she's refusing to speak to me, removed herself from the group chat, and called me a terrible friend and parasocial. She says she won't talk to me until I apologize for putting another strain on her relationship and for posting something without her permission. Update. I thought I would update, reformat the post so it's easier to read, and give some info. She had made her Instagram note, Nisi Poo coming 2025 inches 6 hours before I posted, so I assumed it was fine. The GC and her BF were the only PPL in the story. She bought prank tests online that always test positive. Her boyfriend assumed the baby was by someone else, not me. It wasn't a prank, she was just going to pretend she was pregnant until she actually got pregnant. And lastly, Tekinots are traditional Jewish prayers for expecting mothers. Story 27. Am I the asshole for not paying for my little sister's friends? I, 26F, was visiting family for the weekend and decided to take my little sister, 14F, and her friends to a nearby amusement park. I'm my husband, 27M, and I thought it would be a fun way to bond, especially since we don't get to visit often. My sister asked if she could bring along a couple of friends, and I said sure, as long as they brought their own money. She assured me they would. Before leaving, I double-checked with my sister to confirm that her friends knew they needed to pay for their tickets and anything they wanted to buy. My sister earns her own money from chores, so she was set, and I trusted her to make sure her friends were too. The park was about an hour's drive away, and the ride there was chaotic but fun, with loud teenagers chatting in the back. When we arrived, my husband paid for himself and me, and my sister paid for her own ticket. But when it was time for her friends to pay, They just stood there awkwardly. I asked what the problem was, and one of them admitted they didn't bring any cash, just their cards. The park only accepted cash, which my sister had told them beforehand. One of the girls asked if I could cover for her, and she'd pay me back later. I asked about the others, and she just shrugged, expecting I'd pay for all three. I explained that my husband and I only brought enough cash for ourselves, since we were told everyone else had their own. I offered to drive them to an ATM nearby, but instead of accepting, they started complaining, asking why I couldn't just cover them. One even implied I should have planned for this possibility and brought extra cash just in case. My sister defended me, reminding them that she'd warned them about the cash-only policy. This led to an argument between her and her friends, right there in front of the ticket booth. It was loud enough that people in line were staring. Feeling embarrassed, I decided to get a refund for our tickets and leave. I let my sister know we were done for the day and drove everyone home. On the way back, her friends were clearly upset, calling me selfish and saying I ruined their day. When we got back, my mom supported my decision, and my sister stood by me as well. But later that evening, I found out one of the girls' moms had posted about it on Facebook, calling me out for humiliating her daughter and not being generous enough to pay. I haven't responded to the post, but part of me wonders if I should, just to clear the air. Was I wrong for standing my ground and not paying for their tickets? 28. Am I the asshole for not bringing my wallet to dinner with my friend to teach her a lesson? Last night, I, 28F, went to dinner with a close friend and decided to leave my wallet at home. She has a habit of forgetting hers when we go out, leaving me to foot the bill. I thought this time, if she conveniently forgot again, it might finally push her to take responsibility. I felt like I was being taken advantage of, and I was completely fed up. As expected, when the check came, she patted her pockets, rummaged through her purse, and said, "Oh my God, I forgot my wallet. Where the hell is it?" It's the same song and dance every time. I simply responded, "Me too." It was really awkward. She looked at me with the most disgusted expression I have ever seen, but then I could tell she started to panic. She was upset with me for putting her on the spot, but I was frustrated by her repeated behavior. She told me I was a horrible person for publicly humiliating her. I didn't think it was fair to keep covering for her without saying anything. She was able to use Apple Pay, thankfully, and I could tell she was embarrassed. So am I the asshole for leaving my wallet behind to make a point? Or was it a necessary step to address an ongoing problem without confrontation? Edit. If you don't have anything polite or productive to say, then please keep scrolling. I'm autistic and have been very confused by this whole situation with this person I thought was my friend. I thought it would be a good idea to get some opinions from other people, but I feel like I'm being made out to be a complete idiot. Also, stop sending me DMs telling me that I'm a stupid bitch. For those of you that have taken the time to comment and done so in a polite manner, I thank you.